Welcome back for another deep dive. You're ready to explore some pretty fascinating connections today.
I'm ready when you are.
All right, so today we're going to be exploring the origins of music,
Yeah.
but also like how it connects to language and then how rain can seriously affect how we make decisions. Oh, and the source material we're looking at. It's a conversation between two people, and one of them, get this, claims he's actually used rain to, kind of help him out in the past.
Sounds intriguing. I'm all ears.
Right. So the source material dives right into this mystery of like, where did music even come from?
Yeah.
And they make this point that figuring out where music comes from, it's actually harder than figuring out language.
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. Because it's like music just kind of appeared, right? No like evolutionary trail, nothing similar in nature, really.
It's true. I mean, think about it. With language, we can look at how vocal cords developed over time, how the brain evolved to process language. And there's archaeological evidence, like ancient writing, that helps us reconstruct proto-languages and trace how they shifted and changed over time. But with music, it's like it just popped up out of nowhere.
Out of thin air. The source material I was looking at mentioned there's like three main theories floating around out there. One is that music evolved from language. Another is that language evolves from music. And the third is that both music and language, they came from some common ancestor.
Right, right. And each of those theories comes with its own set of puzzles to solve. Like, for example, if music came before language, shouldn't we see some hints of it in the animal kingdom? I mean, sure, some animals sing, birds, whales, even some insects, but they mainly do it for, like, territory or mating, right?
Yeah.
It's not really the same as the complexity and emotional depth we find in human music.
So maybe the link between music and language isn't just about the sounds themselves then. What I was reading really emphasized this idea that music and language, sure, they both use sound, but they're doing totally different things with totally different goals.
Absolutely, that's a key difference. Think of it like this. Language is primarily about information. It's about getting a message across, clearly and directly. It's functional, logical. Music, though, it goes way beyond just information. It taps into our emotions, creating a sense of connection and shared feeling that you just can't get with words alone.
It's like that saying about music being the universal language, right?
Yep.
Have you ever listened to a really powerful piece of music and it just like moved you? And it doesn't even matter if it's in a language you understand or comes from a culture you know nothing about. I mean, think about opera or like traditional music from another part of the world.
Exactly. You get it. It's about that shared emotional response. And here's something else to consider. Repetition. In language, if you're repeating yourself a lot, it usually means there's a communication breakdown. Somebody didn't get the message. But in music, repetition just makes the emotion stronger. Think about the chorus of your favorite song. The more it repeats, the more you get drawn into that feeling.
That's why we get songs stuck in our heads, right? They tap into something deeper, something that goes beyond just words and information. Which makes you wonder, maybe music's origin isn't as logical as we think. Maybe it's rooted in a different kind of intelligence or awareness, something we don't fully grasp yet.
Yeah, it's a fascinating idea. Maybe we've been approaching music from the wrong angle all along.
All right, well, let's shift gears for a moment, move from the abstract to something a little more, well, concrete. The source material I was reading, it starts talking about the effects of rain, and this is where that guy's story comes in, about using rain to his advantage.
Ah, yes, that's quite a claim he makes. That rain can impact not just romance, but crime too. And, there's actually some science to back that up.
Seriously, I'm curious. Tell me more.
Okay, so first of all, rain can actually trigger a chain reaction in us, both physically and psychologically. The lower barometric pressure that comes with rain, it can actually make our heart beat a bit faster. And then on a deeper level, rain can bring up old anxieties, instinctive fears we might not even be aware of.
You mean, like, even if we're safe and sound inside our homes, rain still has that effect?
Exactly. Our ancestors, they had to deal with some serious stuff when it rained. Flash floods, predators, trouble finding food. Those instinctive fears, they're still wired into us on some level. We may not always consciously think about them, but they're there, lurking in the background.
Okay, that makes sense. And it reminds me of something I've heard about before, the suspension bridge effect. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it actually ties in perfectly here. See, when we're in a situation that triggers fear and excitement at the same time, our brains, well, they tend to misinterpret those feelings. We end up attributing those heightened emotions to the person we're with, making them seem even more attractive.
So this guy in the source material, he basically used that to his advantage, right? He took his date out for a romantic walk in the rain. Clever, but a little manipulative, maybe.
Well, he definitely knew how to play the odds. And his story just goes to show you, we're not always as in control of our emotions as we think we are. Our environment, even something as basic as the weather, can play a huge role in how we see the world and how we react to it.
So what you're saying is like we might act differently in the rain than we would in other situations?
You could think of it that way, yeah. Like music and rain, they're both catalysts. They amplify the emotions that are already there, bring them to the surface, make them stronger.
Okay, that explains the romance angle. But the source also mentions rain and crime. Right. How does that fit in?
Right, so think about this. When people are huddled together for shelter, sharing that feeling of vulnerability during a downpour, it can create a special bond, a shelter bond, you might call it, a feeling of trust and connection.
Like when you share an umbrella with a stranger, right? It suddenly feels like a meaningful gesture because you're in it together. You're both vulnerable.
Exactly. But here's the thing, this heightened emotional state, while it can build trust, it can also make us more vulnerable to being tricked. The source material even suggests that con artists use this to their advantage. They prey on people's anxiety during a storm, knowing it might cloud their judgment.
Wow, so it's like a double-edged sword then. Rain, like music, it just turns up the volume on whatever's already there, whether it's love, fear, trust, suspicion.
It's like they hold a magnifying glass up to our emotions, making them bigger, more intense.
So next time I'm out in a downpour, I'll have to pay closer attention to how I'm feeling. You never know what you might discover. But before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I've got one more question. The source material hints at music being, like, a key to unlocking a deeper level of reality. Where are we going with that?
Ooh, that's where things get really interesting. In the next part of the deep dive, we're going to explore the idea that musicians, with their sensitivity to emotion, might actually be able to perceive things that most of us miss.
Now, that's something I want to hear more about. Stay tuned for the next part of the deep dive, folks.
Picking up where we left off, this idea that music could be like a key to some deeper reality. It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, and we were talking about musicians and how they're so tuned into emotions, like maybe they can pick up on things the rest of us miss. Let's dig into that.
Okay, so remember those theories about where music came from. What if music taps into something deeper, something beyond just logic and reason? Could it be like a leftover, a trace of some ancient way of communicating? Maybe even something that was around before language, like we know it.
Now we're getting into some seriously mind-blowing territory. I mean, the source material mentions some pretty out there ideas like connections between music and like the divine, even extraterrestrials and monkeys. I'm not sure about that last one.
Okay, let's not get too carried away. But there is this interesting point about, like, angels. You know, in a lot of religions, there's this idea of angels as messengers between humanity and the divine. What if the reason for that is, like, there's this fundamental mismatch in how we perceive things, how we communicate, a gap that needs a special kind of translator?
So you're saying like we're all tuned to different frequencies and music with its emotional depth, its ability to bypass words, it acts as a bridge between those different realms.
Right. And it gets even more interesting. A lot of musicians, they claim to have had encounters with UFOs. Now, is that just a coincidence? Or is there something about being, like, artistically sensitive that makes them more attuned to those sorts of phenomena?
Okay, my skeptical side is starting to raise an eyebrow here. But then again, who knows? Maybe those who work with sound and vibration, maybe they really are tapping into something that the rest of us just aren't wired to perceive.
It's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
And the source material, it goes even further, suggesting this musical sensitivity could even extend to, like, communicating with animals. Think about it. Their vocalizations, they're not structured like human language,
Yeah.
but they definitely convey emotions and information.
Wait, hold on. Are we saying musicians are like interspecies whisperers,
Yeah.
secretly chatting with dolphins and chimps through the power of music? I don't know about that one.
Uh-huh. Maybe the animal connection is a bit of a stretch. But the main idea that music gives us a glimpse into deeper realities, that's something worth thinking about. Maybe musicians, because they're so immersed in the emotional language of music, they're able to see things that most of us who are stuck in the concrete world of words and logic just completely miss.
So it's not that musicians are literally talking to angels or aliens, but they might be accessing a level of awareness that's harder for the rest of us to reach. Like they're tuned into a radio station we can't quite pick up.
I like that analogy. And if you think back to that idea of rain amplifying emotions, maybe music does something similar. It makes us more aware, more receptive to subtle energies or experiences that would normally pass us by.
So what about those of us who aren't musically gifted? Are we just stuck in the mundane, missing out on all the good stuff? I mean, I don't play any instruments, I just listen.
Not at all. We may not all be writing symphonies or playing in bands, but we can still learn to appreciate the emotional nuances of music. Let ourselves be moved by a melody, feel the rhythm, let those feelings wash over us without overthinking it.
It's like music isn't just entertainment. It's a way to understand ourselves and the world around us on a deeper level. And even if we don't create it, we can still be deeply affected by it.
Exactly. And by really paying attention to how music makes us feel, we might just catch a glimpse of that mysterious place where music and language first split apart, a place where emotion and intuition are king.
Okay, now that's something to think about. But before we completely wrap up, there's one last intriguing point in the source material. It involves rain, romance, and a little bit of a personal
Oh
twist.
yeah, the story about how this guy used rain to his advantage on a date. It's a perfect example of how these abstract ideas we've been talking about can actually play out in real life.
So we're back to our rain-soaked Romeo and his clever date strategy. Tell me more. So remind me, what happened on this rain-soaked date? The source said he, like, planned the whole thing.
He did. He used the rain and that whole suspension bridge effect
Yeah.
to make his date, more into him.
Wow, playing with people's emotions like that. Bold move, but pretty clever.
Yeah, it shows he understood some psychology, right? Rain gets those emotions going, makes us more open to attraction, connection, all that.
He basically set the mood, knowing the weather would be on his side. That's some next-level dating strategy.
For sure. But it reminds us we're not always in control of how we feel, right? Our environment, the weather, it can change how we see things, how we react.
But here's the catch. This rain-induced romance, the source said it led to a curse. Now, I don't know if that's literal or just, bad luck later on, but it adds a twist.
Definitely a cautionary tale,
Right.
right? Maybe it means even if you can use the environment to boost certain feelings, you
Uh,
can't always control where they lead.
Classic case of be careful what you wish for. You might get that romantic rain walk, but then who knows what storms are coming later.
Exactly. And it comes back to our main point today. Rain, like music, it amplifies what's already inside us. Love, trust, fear, anxiety, all those primal things, they get stronger in the rain.
So maybe the message is pay attention when it rains. It might be telling you something about yourself, the people around you, those hidden things that influence our lives.
And maybe next time you hear a piece of music that really gets to you, let it remind you there's still mysteries inside us, waiting to be unlocked by those powerful emotions, by intuition, by what we feel.
Well, folks, that's it for this depth dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep listening to that music all around you.